Hello there, Mr. Sutton here, bringing you the IM3-24 Extra Practice number 3 solutions on factoring advanced trinomials. There's a puzzle associated with this one, so let's take a look at that. It goes along with this extra practice. The idea here is we have to solve the riddle, what happened when the boarding house blew up? Sounds violent, but we'll see. So we have to basically factor these trinomials over here on the left, and we should have a matching pair of factors over here on the right. When we find those, the basic idea is whatever number and letter go together, put that letter next to that number down here in the box below. So for example, let's say we do problem 1 and we figure out that for, 14 and R go together. Then you would put an R in box 14. So let's give this a shot. So for each of these problems, I'm going to use something called the AC method. And we'll go through it in detail on this first one. The idea is that we're going to multiply what I call the A and the C values. That's the first coefficient and that last constant together. So in this case, we got 3 times 2. That's giving us 6. And then we're going to find factors of that AC value, that product, 6, that add up to this middle coefficient of 7. Once we find those factors, we're going to split up this middle x term into 2 terms with x's. So let me think here. Things that multiply to 6 and add up to 7, well, 1 and 6 does it. So I could split this up into 1x plus 6x. So that's how I'm going to rewrite that, 1x plus 6x instead of 7x. And then I'm going to use factoring by grouping to finish this problem, because now I've got 4 terms. So looking at my first 2 terms, we can take out an x from both of those. So that leaves me with 3x plus 1. And for my last 2 terms, I can take out a 2 rather, from 6 and 2. So that'll give me a 3x plus a 1. I've got 3x plus 1 for both of those, so I can take that out as a common factor. And then the leftovers, x plus 2, go in my other parentheses. So I've got these 2 factors. Now I'm going to look over here and see if I can match those up. So I need a 3x plus 1 and an x plus 2. Here's the 3x plus 1 under 8. And then the x plus 2 then in the other column is over here under w. So I'm going to put a w in spot number 8. That's right there. For this next problem, using the AC method, let me do 2 times 3 to give me an AC value that is again 6, just like the last one. But this time I'm looking for factors of 6 that add up to 5. Okay, well, 1 and 6 no longer works, but 2 and 3 will do it. So I'm going to split up my 5x into a 2x plus 3x. And now that I've got 4 terms, I can factor this by grouping. For my first 2 terms, I can take out, it looks like a 2 and an x from all that. And that leaves me with, let's see, 2x squared divided by 2x is just x. 2x divided by 2x is 1, so x plus 1. For the last 2 terms, I can take out a 3 from those, leaving me with an x plus 1. And then if I take x plus 1 out of all that, then 2x plus 3 is my leftovers. So let me look for that pair of factors. I don't see, let's see, here's my x plus 1 actually. That's spot 15 I'm going to put something in. And then that matches up with the 2x plus 3 down here under letter I. So we have 15i. So over at 15 I put an I and I move on. For number 3, using my AC method here, 3 times 5 is 15 for that AC value. And I need factors of 15 that add up to negative 16. Let's see, 1 and 15 would if they were both negative. So I'll break this up into negative 1x and negative 15x. And it doesn't really matter what order we write those in, but we need to have both of them. So now that I can factor by grouping, looking at my first 2 terms, I can take an x out of those, leaving me with 3x and minus 1. For my next 2 terms, I can take a 5 out of those. And since my third term is negative, I'm going to take a negative 5 out. That leaves me with positive 3x, and this will be a negative 1 now. So 3x minus 1 matches the other parentheses. I can take that out as a common factor, and then x minus 5 is the other factor that goes along with it. Looking in my list, I see 3x minus 1 right there, and then I need an x minus 5. Let's see, so this was 11, x minus 5. Up here is e, so 11e. 11 is going to be letter E. There we go. This next one, we have an AC value of 7 times 2, 14. So now I need factors of 14 that add up to negative 9. 1 and 14 doesn't work, but 2 and 7 does if they're both negative. So let me make this negative 2x minus 7x. So I can take an x out of those first two terms, leaving me with 7x minus 2. And out of the next two terms, I can't really take anything other than a 1. And since that's a negative third term, I'm going to use a negative 1. So we have negative 1 coming out and positive 7x minus 2 left inside. Now I can take 7x minus 2 out of everything, and that leaves me with x minus 1 as the other parentheses. Taking a look over on the left, I don't see a 7x minus 2 in this first column. I do see a 7x plus 2 here. Oh, wait, no, here's 7x minus 2. That's O, and that means the x minus 1 must be in the first column. Let's see, so we have O, that's going to go in spot 3. That's where my x minus 1 is. So here's spot 3, put an O there. On to the next. For number 5, this one actually doesn't really need the AC method, but I'm going to use it anyway. 6 times 1 gives me an AC of 6. And now I need things that multiply to 6 and add up to this middle coefficient of 5. Well, 1 and 6 won't work, but 2 and 3 does. So I'm going to split this up into 2u plus 3u. Factoring by grouping now, first two terms, I can take out a 2 and a u. That leaves me with 3u plus 1. And now for my last two terms, I can't really take out anything other than a 1, so that's what I'm going to take out. And that leaves me with 3u plus 1. So 3u plus 1 is my common factor parentheses that I'll take out of everything. And then my leftovers, 2u plus 1, can go right next to that. So I'm looking for some u's. 3u plus 1. I don't see that in my first column. I've got 3u plus 1 down here, though, next to s. So then 2u plus 1, let's see if we can find that over here. 7. So number 7 is going to be an s then. So that's right there. This next one is another one that you don't really need AC method since you have a 1 for this constant. You could find factors of 8 that add up to negative 9, but I'm going to use AC anyway just to be consistent. So 8 times 1 gives me 8. So I want factors of 8 that add up to negative 9. 1 and 8 work if they're both negative. So I'll split this up into negative u and negative 8u. So using my grouping method, I can take a u out of my first two terms, leaving me with 8u minus 1. And now I can take a negative 1 out of the next two terms, and that's about as good as it gets. So take a negative 1 there. This will be a positive 8u minus a 1. So 8u minus 1, that's a common factor that comes out. U minus 1 is the leftovers. And now looking for both of those, well, here's the u minus 1 over on the left side, so that's 17. And the 8u minus 1 is over here next to g. So then 17 is going to have a letter G. So there we go. And on to the next problem. For this problem, I'm liking AC method. There's not really another method that works great on this one other than guess and check. So 10 times 3 gives me an AC of 30. So I want things that multiply to 30 and add up to 17. 1 and 30 doesn't work. 2 and 15 works if they're both positive. So let's split this up into a 2u plus 15u. And now for my common factors for my first two terms to start the grouping process, I can take a 2 and a u out of both of those. So 10u squared divided by 2u, that's going to be 5u. And then 2u divided by itself gives me a plus 1. For my next two terms, 15u and 3, I can take a 3 out of those. That leaves me with 5u and plus 1. So 5u plus 1 is the common factor coming out of all that. And then 2u plus 3 goes right next to it in parentheses. And looking for those over here, here's the 5u plus 1, that's r, and the 2u plus 3, that's over here next to 6. So we have 6r, so 6 is going to be r under box 6. For this one, let's see here, AC value, 9 times 2 is going to give me 18. And now I need factors of 18 that add up to this negative 9 in the middle. So let me think, 1 and 18, no. 2 and 9 adds up to 11. How about 3 and 6? Yeah, that adds up to 9. If I make them both negative, it's a negative 9. So let me make this negative 3u minus 6u in the middle there to replace the negative 9u. And now for my factoring by grouping, I can take a 3u out of the first two terms. That leaves me with 3u minus 1. For the next two terms, let me think, a 2 can come out of both of those. I'll make it a negative 2 because this is a negative third term here. So negative 2 comes out. We've got a positive 3u minus 1 in there. Let me take out 3u minus 1 from both of those terms, and then 3u minus 2 are my leftovers. So let me look for 3u minus 1 and 3u minus 2. Here's 3u minus 1, that's 14, and 3u minus 2 is y, so 14y. So here's spot 14, put a y there, and go on to the next problem. On number 9, we have an AC value of 5 times 6, or 30. So I want factors of 30 that add up to 11. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. None of this is adding up to 11. 5 and 6 works. So let me split this up into a 5u plus 6u. And let me do some grouping now. First two terms, I can take a 5u out of that. That's kind of nice. So that'll be a u plus 1 left inside there. And then I can take a 6 out of these last two terms. So that'll be a 6 times u plus 1. U plus 1 comes out of all that. And then 5u plus 6, that'll be my leftovers in there. So let me think, u plus 1. Here it is. This is e, and then that should be matched up with a 5u plus 6. That'll be over in the other column here. Looks like we have 9, so 9e. Here's 9, put an e there. There we go. For this one, we have a small AC value of 3 times negative 1, or negative 3. So I need factors of negative 3 that add up to 2. Just got to pick these carefully. So really 1 and 3 is all that we can work with. But if I make it a negative 1 and a positive 3, that'll add up to positive 2. So let me split this into negative n plus 3n. For my first two factors, I can take an n out of those, doing a little grouping here. So that leaves me with 3n minus 1. And then for the next two, these are relatively prime to each other, so all I can do is take out a 1, leaving me again with 3n minus 1. But that's okay, because that's a repeated parenthesis, so I can take that whole 3n minus 1 out as a common factor. And then n plus 1, those are my leftovers going next to it. So 3n minus 1. I've got that right here under 2. And then n plus 1 in the other column, I see that as an O. So we have a 2O. So I'll put an O right there. There we are. So we're going to do this problem in a minute. One thing you may have noticed on the last problem that kind of subtly changed over here, and I didn't really call attention to it then, but I will now, is we have a completely new set of factor pairs that we're working with. So if you were wondering how we're possibly going to fill in all these numbers with what we had before, well, the answer is that there's a whole new batch that we have to work with here. So AC value for this, 5 times negative 1, that's negative 5. We need factors of negative 5 that add up to negative 4. 1 and negative 5 would do the job. So let me split this up into a plus n minus 5n. And now I can take out some common factors for the grouping process. For the first two, I can take an n out of both of those. So that'll be a 5n plus 1. And for the next two, all I can do is take out a negative 1, leaving me again with 5n plus 1. So 5n plus 1 comes out of everything. And then we have n minus 1 left over. 5n plus 1, that's e right here, and then the n minus 1, that's the 5. So we have 5 is going to be an e. For number 12, we have an AC value of 2 times negative 3, so negative 6. I need factors of negative 6 that add up to 5. 1 and 6, I ought to be able to get a 5 out of that. I know these have to have opposite signs because they multiply to a negative. So if I do negative 1 and positive 6, that adds up to a 5. So let me split this 5n up into 1n minus 6n. And now using a little grouping, I can take an n out of my first two terms. That leaves me with 2n minus 1 for that first two. And then for the last two terms, I can take a 3 out of the 6 and the 3. That'll leave me with a 2n minus 1. I can factor the 2n minus 1 out of everything, and then that leaves me with n plus 3 for my other factor. So 2n minus 1, I see that right over here with 16, and then n plus 3, that's up here as an n. So we have 16n, here is 16, put an n there, and then we have ing, I'm pretty sure that's the end of a word. Let's keep going and see what this puzzle is going to be. For number 13, I have an AC value of 7 times negative 2 for negative 14. So factors of negative 14 that add up to negative 13, well, that's actually not so bad. That's just going to be 1 and negative 14. So let me split this negative 13 up into a plus n and a minus 14n. And now taking a look at my first two terms for grouping, I can take an n out of both of those. That leaves me with 7n plus 1. For the next two, I can take out a negative 2, leaving me with 7n plus 1. So then 7n plus 1 comes out, n minus 2 goes in, and let me find all of that over on the left side. Here's my 7n plus 1, it's an r, and the n minus 2 is under spot number 10 here. So we said r under 10, so put an r there and move on. Here we go on this problem with an AC value of 3 times negative 5 or negative 15. So factors of negative 15 that add up to 14. Well, 1 and 15 will do it if I had a negative 1 and a positive 15. So we'll split this up into a negative n plus 15n. Or actually t, I should say. These are all t's now. I'm used to working with n's from the last several problems. And now for the first two terms, I can take a t out of there. That leaves me with 3t minus 1. For the next two, I can take out a 5. That'll leave me with 3t minus 1. Take a 3t minus 1 out of all those. And then the leftovers, t plus 5 is my other factor. So looking for t's now, 3t minus 1. I see that up here next to 12. And then the t plus 5 over on the right here is an f. So 12f. Here's 12, put an F there. Time to go on to the next. All right, we're on number 15. This one we have 4 times 7, giving us an AC of 28. And now I need factors of 28 that add up to negative 11. 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. 4 and 7 works if I have them both negative. So let me make this negative 4t minus 7t. And now doing a little grouping, I can take a 4t out of the first two. That leaves me with a t minus 1. For the next ones, I can definitely take out a 7. Make it a negative 7 because I have a negative third term. So that leaves me with a positive t and a minus 1. So t minus 1 comes out of everything. And then 4t minus 7 is my other factor. So let me think here. 4t minus 7, right down here, number 1. We're going to be filling in box 1. And what letter goes in there? T minus 1 gives us an R, so put an R in there. And I've got the first letter of this whole thing, rouge something. And I think this last thing is going to be flying, but or maybe it's frying. I don't really know. Let's keep going. All right, I think this will be the second to last problem. So AC value for this one, we've got 6 times negative 1, so negative 6. Factors of negative 6 that add up to positive 5. 1 and 6, if the 1's negative, we'll do it. So make this a negative t plus 6t instead of 5t. Using some grouping, I take a t out of those first two. That leaves me with 6t minus 1. For the next ones, all I can do is take a 1 out of there. Again, that's going to be 6t minus 1. So 6t minus 1 comes out of everything. And then t plus 1 can be my other parentheses. 6t minus 1. See that down here? That's the letter L. And then t plus 1 over here, that's 13. So we have 13L. Okay, here it is. Final problem, number 17. We're going to fill in spot R. So I think we know that one of these is going to be a 3t plus 1, and we're just wondering what the letter is going to be. So, AC value, 3 times negative 7, that's going to be negative 21. Factors of negative 21 that add up to negative 20. 1 and 21 actually will do it if I have a negative 21 and a positive 1. So I'll make this negative 20t into a plus 1t minus 21t. Using some grouping. First two terms, take out a t. That'll be a 3t plus 1. And for the next group here, I can take out a negative 7, leaving me with 3t plus 1. So 3t plus 1, as expected, is one of our factors. And then t minus 7 is the other missing factor, and that is an m. So spot 4 then is getting an m. And it's time to go ahead and solve the puzzle now. Okay, so just a reminder, the original riddle was what happened when the boarding house blew up. So let's go through all these letters and parse these out into some words. Let's see, we have R-O-O-M, so that's room. But this next ers doesn't really make sense as a separate word, so maybe roomers, like people who are rooming there, roomers. Okay, let's try it. Roomers, W-E-R-E, I think that's the end of the next word because that spells out were. And then F-L-Y-I-N-G. So I was right earlier, it was flying. All right, so what happened when the boarding house blew up? Rumors were flying. Oh, that's kind of morbid. Well, I guess there's the people who live in the boarding house flying everywhere because of the explosion. But there's also a play on rumors, because maybe if you're at one of these boarding houses, you, I don't know a lot of rumors about each other. Anyway, Mr. Sutton's signing off.